Vice News recently published what I think is a very important report that I want as many people as possible to know about on the real number of police shootings that take place in this country. And here to join us now is one of the authors of that report. Taylor Dolven is a reporter with Vice News. The piece studied 50 of the largest police departments in the country and showed that Americans are shot by police more than twice as often as previously known. So first of all, Taylor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Secondly, I wanted to ask you, before we go into the details of the report itself, what was the original inspiration behind doing this study? How did this come about?
Yeah, so one of my colleagues, Rob, he's more of a statistician, and just in observing the other media efforts to gauge the number of people shot by police, we noticed that most counts left out non-fatal shootings. And as we started to do more reporting, talk to experts, talk to advocates, we came to understand that non-fatal shootings are actually really important to understanding this phenomenon. People who are shot and survive go back to their communities and carry their experiences with them. And so we're able to talk to them, learn from them, and it was just sort of a big piece that was missing, and that's kind of what inspired us to go after this data.
Well, it sounds like it was a very labor-intensive process. So you basically identified the 50 largest police departments, and then asked them for data, or looked to see what was publicly available. How did that work?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. We kind of divided up the departments after we made the official list, and then some departments, like one of mine was Dallas, for example. They have a really comprehensive data set available for download online that even has full incident descriptions and full details, whereas other departments like DeKalb County in Georgia needs a letter via snail mail requesting the data, and then sends it back in PDFs in the mail. So it was just kind of all over the place in terms of how departments manage their records. Some didn't keep a data set and couldn't say immediately how many people had been shot. But we're able to pull those reports individually and send them to us, and then we had to then sift through them and put them in our data set.
Did you get a lot of resistance from departments? Were some of them reluctant to do this for you? I think I read that some of them charged you or wanted to charge money for it.
Yeah,
were they unhappy?
A lot. Oh, go ahead.
No, were they unhappy providing this data? Or did they drag their feet? I guess I'm curious.
Yes, I mean, some of them responded right away and attached, like I remember Tucson, for example, responded right away. The data was an email attachment. And then other departments we had to negotiate with for months, really. Negotiate prices, negotiate, how much data they were going to provide us. So there definitely was resistance from a lot of different departments, and we didn't end up getting all of the variables that we wanted for every department.
So, but the ones you did get, then you have to go through the process, since there's no uniform database of police shootings in this country, which I believe, and I imagine you believe there should be. So then I assume you had to go in and take all these reports from different police departments, 50 of them, and as they say in the statistical world, normalize them, make them so that descriptor A from Department A over here means pretty much the same thing as descriptor B, right? So you can start totaling them up, right? How did that go?
Yeah, so after we kind of negotiated and wrangled all of this data, we came up with a standard format and had to go through, if we got an Excel sheet from a department, we had to turn it into an Excel sheet that matched our format, the format we were going to use to analyze and eventually publish. So that was definitely a lot of the time spent in Google Sheets, cleaning data, double checking, triple checking, rows and rows and rows of data, over 4,000 rows. So that was definitely the majority of the labor was spent in spreadsheets.
So one of the, this was a really comprehensively done report, and I compliment you guys on it. Well, one of the things you did, in addition to the statistical analysis, which was very well done, was you really featured the human stories of the people who had been affected by police shootings. You had, it's nicely done with, it's a tragic subject, of course, but nicely done with videos of some of the people who've been shot and stories about them under the heading "Shot by Cops and Forgotten." So that must have been, among other things, a wrenching experience to do the reporting on some of these personal stories.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, we knew that that was always going to be the goal, that we really wanted to provide a statistics side of this, but feature the people behind the numbers, who are really affected, and even entire communities who are affected. So getting those interviews was definitely a top priority. It was a bit difficult at times. Some people are sometimes hesitant to speak about these traumatic experiences, and attorneys especially are really wary of having a lot of these people are involved in lawsuits against departments, so sometimes they're wary of having them speak to media if their lawsuit is still pending. But we were able to get some really compelling and interesting and wonderful people to speak to us.
Again, we're speaking with Taylor Dolven, who is a reporter for Vice News on Vice News's recent report. It's a 9-month investigation of police shootings in the United States of America. Now, Taylor, you found in your report, if I recall correctly, that the number of shootings had begun to decline as a result of an Obama-era initiative by the Justice Department. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's interesting. We found in the cities that had, well, first of all, the total number of shootings at these 50 departments has declined. That's mostly thanks to the biggest departments like the NYPD or Chicago PD, LAPD. But among smaller, more rural departments, some of those are still seeing great increases. So it's the nuance is very important here. But yes, we also looked at the effect of reforms, federal intervention, things like consent decrees or recommendations from the Justice Department to individual police departments. And we found that, I think on average, almost a 30% decrease in shootings at police departments that had federal intervention. And those are the kinds of the reforms that we're seeing the new administration cut back on. So it was really important to us to do that analysis.
Right. So basically, you found that the Obama Justice Department's interventions were reducing the number of fatalities in these larger departments. But one fears, obviously, you're journalists, we don't have the findings yet, but one fears that as those initiatives are reversed by the Trump Sessions Justice Department, that those fatalities could go up again, right?
Yeah, and again, we didn't just look at fatalities, so we're looking at shootings generally. So people shot by police at all, fatal or not fatal,
right.
decreased because of this intervention. So, I think those concerns are definitely valid. Most of the experts we spoke with who worked in this type of oversight have those same fears. We have 2017 data for some departments, but we don't have all of it yet, and obviously the year's not over, so we'll be continuing to gather those numbers, but it will be interesting to see what the impact is.
One of the things that I think people don't realize sometimes in our culture, where we see shootings depicted on television and movies and so on, is, it's almost romanticized, it's sort of papered over, and it's a horrific experience to be shot even if you survive, in many cases, the damage done to the body, to the psyche, to the spirit can be absolutely devastating. So you guys do document that, I think, very well in your report. Did anything, you've already said it was tough to do, and I understand that. Did anything you found in this study surprise you, whether it was from the human stories and the way people responded to being shot, or whether it was in the investigation process or the numbers themselves? Did you or the other members of the reporting team come away surprised by anything you found?
I think we were all really surprised by the number of non-fatal shootings. So we're talking about the sort of what's new about our analysis, and just the scope of, twice as many people are shot by police every year than we had thought when just looking at fatal shootings. And then, past that number, you then have all of these people who are able to speak about it and speak to some of the things you just mentioned. We interviewed the people featured in our piece who still have bullets lodged in their bodies, and then we spoke to their mothers who, don't have the same trust in police that they once had. So this is really, it really has an impact on these lives, and it's more lives than we knew had suffered this before.
Yeah, so I guess I just have one more question then to ask you, Taylor, which is there any plan for follow-up reporting on this, additional reporting going forward, or related investigations of any kind?
Yeah, right now we're sort of taking stock of the data that we have and the outstanding data. It's funny, I actually heard back from a police department about some records we had requested months ago, just hours after we published on Monday. So we are going to keep updating the database we made public with new records as they come in. And then outside of that, we're really interested in focusing on some cities in particular, ones that have experienced some of these big declines thanks to the federal reforms, about how they've done it and what things are like there. Those are some reporting lines we're interested in exploring.
Okay, well, it's a terrific report. I'm glad you guys are following up that way, and it can be found, including some of the source data, if people want to do investigations of their own, at news.vice.com/story/shot-by-cops. That's news.vice.com/story/shot-by-cops. So first of all, thanks so much, Taylor Dolven, for all the great reporting you guys did on this, and thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for your interest, and thank you for having me.